much, everybody. So this is the Woodstock's presentation for our, the same Smart Communities Challenge that we're all in. So first, our overall project framework to remind everybody, year one is the project that we're doing right now, and it is largely a planning project. Year two is for pilot projects, and year three is hopefully for full plan implementation. For year one, our project is divided into two sections. The first is the Smart Woodstock Citywide Strategy, which is going to be a planning document meant to set the overarching goals and vision for what we're trying to achieve by becoming a smart city here in Woodstock. The second part is the downtown corridor study. So we have a study area that includes Main Street, Arnold Mill, and Town Lake Parkway, and this main intersection in town where they converge. This part of the study is going to outline the issues in the corridor that can be solved by smart technology, and to recommend specific technical solutions that we can use to address problems in the community. And then the objective for this part of the project is to be ready to put technology on the ground in year two. So for our midpoint progress so far, we've been wrapping up our community engagement process, and we're about to dive deeper into the corridor study, considering recommendations for solutions that are specific to the corridor. So here is just briefly our project team again. We've got a huge project team. The city project team is made up mostly of department directors. And then we've got our consultant team that we've hired, which is Pond with MMP. We have some advisory partners and, of course, our Georgia Tech research partners. So our motivation to become a smart community, in our original proposal, we stated our motivation is the need to balance pedestrian comfort and safety with vehicular efficiency and commuter throughput in our walkable downtown center. So in Woodstock, we have a huge amount of events every year, obviously not right now with the current COVID-19 issues that are going on, but normally we have over 100,000 people attending events in downtown a year, and we've also got commuter traffic moving from Roswell and Alpharetta to the Town Lake area of Woodstock going through this main corridor, and then also north and south on Main Street. And so you can see here we have some huge traffic numbers, and so this is our initial motivation to apply for funding for this project. So the first thing that we did was a survey for the citywide strategy part of the project. So this survey has a project defining question. So the question was, when it comes to smart technology, which potential benefits are most important to you? And so we did this survey in an online format, but we also made this tool that you can see a picture of here on the right so that we could do intercept interviews with the survey, going to some events in Woodstock and trying to reach out to people that were there waiting. So we did these intercept interviews with members of our project team at 7 different events. And the first one, you can see a picture here on the bottom left, is from the Christmas parade. So that was a great place to talk to people because everybody was just standing around waiting for the parade to happen. We also went to the farmers market and some morning coffee groups in Woodstock. We're really fortunate with the public input because we have so many events already that we can just tag on to. We have a really involved community in the downtown district already. So for this first survey, we got 469 total responses, which we're really proud of. 95 of those were in-person intercept interviews with conversations with members of the project team. And then 374 of them were online survey responses. So here is, this is a graphic produced by Pond, and it shows the results of this first, of these results from the citywide strategy survey. And you can see that tied for number 1 are improved vehicular, pedestrian, and bicycle safety, and then improving transportation travel times, which, if you remember from our original proposal, these are the 2 issues that we were concerned about addressing in the first place. So it's really awesome that the survey kind of lined up with what our original thoughts were. So on to more of the project progress. We're going to do a survey, or we're doing a survey for the downtown corridor study part of the project also. So this longer survey is on our website now. We currently only have 75 responses. The survey is on a site called Social Pinpoint, and it's got a mapping feature, which I'll show you in a second, with the ability for people to comment on location-specific areas in the corridor, and then to up and down vote those comments. And so we're getting a lot of great activity with that so far. We publicized the survey with these small sticker flyers you can see here on the right. We've also made a survey or a project website, smartwoodstock.com, and you can access the survey there. So here's an example of the survey. The Smart Woodstock Strategy survey was on the same website also, and we removed it because we've closed that one now. So now we're down to just the Smart Corridor survey here, which you can see is kind of a longer survey. You can see the first few questions here, and then the mapping feature on the right. So here's an example of one of the comments. And so you can see how people can like or dislike the comments. And so I've been talking to Pond about aggregating these results and how we can kind of show weighted results, showing, giving the comments different levels of importance depending on how many people liked or disliked them. So that's going to be pretty exciting. So like I said, right now we've got 162 different comments. If anybody listening now has been to Woodstock, or if you're a traveler or commuter or have any experience with Woodstock, please go to the survey and take the survey. And even if you are not familiar with Woodstock, you can still go to the survey and just read comments without actually doing the survey. So we'd love to see you guys do that. So a little bit more about the project progress. For the corridor study portion of the project. You can see here in this table, this is just a small part of this table, but our consultants have started to get together for us a list of proposed technologies and ranking them based on the community goals that were referenced in that first ranking survey. So you can see here we've got weighted scores based on the survey responses. So this is another way that we're going to, incorporate the community support and feedback in the development of the strategy. So, the deliverable for this whole project is going to be the strategy and a list of recommendations. And so each of those recommendations are going to be specifically tied back to some kind of, public input. So I think that's going to be really important. Over to Siva to talk about the research portion of the project.
Oh. Thanks, Katie. Thanks for the introduction. So this is Siva from Georgia Tech Center for Spatial Planning Analytics and Visualization. Just want to talk a little bit about our engagement, the research team's engagement with the Woodstock Smart Communities project from the beginning. As you see, this particular slide kind of outlines the various different things that we've been engaged in throughout this project thus far. So starting with the Smart City Atlanta Expo participation, we gather a lot of notes from there and see different solutions that are emerging in that space. And participate in all of our project meetings on site at Woodstock. So I got an opportunity to meet with various stakeholders, including the city officials and different departments. And so that really gave us some insight into what the leadership is thinking. And so also co-developed the survey instrument that Katie has talked about, the strategy portion as well as the corridor study and survey instruments. And I was fortunate to participate in all of the intercept surveys at Woodstock. So I think there's 6 or 7 of them. I think I was there at 6 of those. And that also gave a good understanding of the cross-section of the stakeholders that kind of embrace Woodstock as a place to live, place to work, place to come and visit. So that was a good experience, and what we learned from there is really helping us in this particular study. As part of that, we wanted to, as a research, we wanted to look at the literature review or analysis and research into various different projects that the Woodstock has been engaged in recent past, because that's kind of wanted to give us an idea of what are the building blocks that Woodstock has been engaged in leading up to where we are now. For this project, when Woodstock proposed, they had a certain the city had a certain idea of where they want to move in terms of this smart aspect of the next city infrastructure development. So that really helped us to understand various different ideas that they've been trying to implement or proposing in their comprehensive plans, in their livable community initiative projects, and so forth. So we have carved out several inferences from those. Also involved in the Woodstock site preparations. Hopefully that will happen. And this COVID-19 situation subsides a little bit, and we did participate in the Macon site visit as well. As part of this Georgia Smart program initiative, we did offer give a webinar in October for as a required element. Next slide, Katie. So basically, our analysis and research is looking at the existing infrastructure and of the city of Woodstock. Really, we wanted to focus on the quarter-mile radius outside of the corridor where the Main Street and Town Lake Parkway meet. If you look at these rings are the crow's flight distance from the urban core there, and if you look at the chart under the lower right, the 1/4 mile radius from the center really captures the essence of what's happening in Midterm, as far as establishments, retail, dining, wellness, other points of interest. So it pretty much captures all of them. So the focus for this project and the corridor study is going to kind of revolve around that aspect of it. So the numbers that you see here on these columns are kind of cumulative. We're going from 1/16 mile all the way up to 1 mile radius. So the quarter mile is kind of the sweet spot where everything is kind of, and so we're going to be looking at mainly those corridors for improvements in the smart aspect. Katie, next slide, please. So as far as looking at the chart on the right, bottom right, it kind of gives us an idea of these surveys that we've been engaged in. What are these stakeholders really talking about? So good 2/3 of them really talk about one of these three things. The discussions about the traffic, there's too much traffic, or lack of parking. That seems to be a thriving talk from among these stakeholders, and some aspects of this safetiness, especially from bicycle and pedestrians. So if you look at the actual current infrastructure, so within the 1/4 mile radius, you have 83% of the streets have a good quality sidewalks. And so I think the city of Woodstock is in a very good position to improve on that and address some of these issues that are being raised. So what the survey is really revealing is the convergence of what the city had in mind coming into this project, and then the stakeholders' ideas of where improvement needs to be. So that is a great encouragement aspect. So the city is now really validating their thought processes, and that's where the focus is going to be on the corridor study in detail. Katie, next slide, please. So we just want to show you a couple of aspects of it. The parking. So the parking seems to be, so this is a series of slides looking at a typical weekday and a weekend from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. If you look at the occupancy of these parking spaces here, so on the weekends, it looks like it's a uniform activity, pretty much full use of all the existing parking infrastructure. But on the weekdays and the evenings tend to be much more 100% almost usage. So one thing that's revealing in here is if you look at the urban core, where the intersection of Town Lake Parkway and Main Street, the proximity to these establishments and the parking availability is pretty much utilized throughout the day. And one thing that's revealing is there is a lot of static parking in the sense that people are using it. Maybe they come in the morning and park it there and park it for an extended period of time. So there are some opportunities in kind of evaluating how that can be streamlined in the smart project. So there are about 17 different entry-exit areas within this corridor. If you can, figure out some solution, so that is good 75% of all the parking spaces, which is close to 1,000, I guess 950 parking spaces. So that will give a real-time occupancy of the parking spaces that could be streamlined better. And as Casey mentioned, Woodstock is having a lot of big events throughout the year, and there's a good influx of people coming from in the neighborhood, from across the city and other places. They congregate, and these are the areas that people are really trying to park and move about. But in reality, the quarter-mile radius is a 10-12 minute walking distance, and there are a lot of opportunities in kind of distributing this and figuring out another mobility options to bring people into these places. So that's where we will be looking at closely in terms of different projects for piloting. Katie, next slide, please. So another aspect is the safety thing that came about, and then this one kind of shows us the lighting infrastructure of the city. And what we are concluding here is that the density of the street lighting for the corridor that we are studying is adequate. There are not much coverage gaps, and especially on the parking areas, the lighting is have a good saturated coverage. And looking at these projects, we have about 40 different projects that have been kind of proposed by our consultants, and we had initial passes. Some of them and kind of shortened that list up, and Katie is in one of the slides listed all the different projects potentially we could look into in the corridor study as we mature that project further up. So these lighting infrastructure offers us plenty of or good advantages of staging or coalescing these different solutions that will result out of this corridor. But one aspect that may not be conducive is the height of these existing lighting. The city of Woodstock has different standards for how these things are currently deployed. So the height for some of these street lighting may not be conducive. So there were some initial discussions on how that could be, implemented. Maybe the city is interested in, putting up all these infrastructure for the project, or some kind of a partnership with private enterprises. So these are one of the things that we will be advancing in the corridor study aspects. Next slide, Katie.
All right. So anything else, Siva?
Good. That's it. Go ahead.
Okay, great. So one more slide about our project progress. So we're, like I said before, we're going now into the early stages of the corridor study. And so we had a meeting with our consultants a few weeks ago, and project team members identified the following technologies that they're going to explore further for application in the study area. But these are not the only strategies that we're looking at, or the only technologies we're looking at. These are just more that we're going to dive deeper into for how they can, be applied to our specific corridor area. So some of the challenges and lessons learned we've had so far, for me, the one major challenge has been the nebulous nature of this project, because unlike Macon and Milton and some of the other previous projects in the last years, our project is a plan, and at this point it's not a pilot project for a specific technology. So it's kind of created a little confusion with how to move forward and make determining concrete roles for each person that's involved in the project a little bit difficult, who can do what, to what extent. Another challenge has been time constraints for city staff who have other full-time duties. I know that some of the other cities that have done this project in the past, especially large counties like Gwinnett, they may have hundreds of employees. Here at the city of Woodstock, each person that's involved in this project has another whole big full-time job. So at a smaller city, it seems like the workers might have more of a variety of duties, and so it really is a little harder to kind of dedicate a lot of time to a new project that's not one of our regular duties. So we've got fewer employees overall, so that's been a little challenge. One of the lessons is that we should identify our internal subject matter experts a little earlier. So for us, we have some members on our project team that have been really instrumental in making sure that the researchers and the consultants kind of know like what we've done to date and what our transportation plans are. They're not related to smart technology. So that's been really important, and creating a subcommittee or a smaller project team with the vital people is going to make for faster decision making for us in the future, rather than trying to involve the whole entire project team on every decision. Another lesson is that we need to, hopefully by the end of this, we're going to have a plan that sets us up with a recommended internal infrastructure for our own operations to support whatever we're going to do with our smart technologies and whichever technologies we choose to implement. We need to have a plan for the staff and the technological resources needed to be able to actually push the project forward and make sure everything can keep moving forward. So our future plans, back to our kind of overall framework with the 3-year plan. So for the rest of our year 1 project that we're doing right now, our future activities are to reschedule events, our site visit, and or adjust to a new way of life, whatever that might mean, at the end of this, kind of social distancing. So we're going to work on that, and I'm sure everybody will be kept up to date on whatever we decide to do for our site visit, which is not happening on April 16th after all. Um, so, and that might change our site visit, might change the purpose of it to more, consensus building rather than input gathering, if we're a little later in the project. But I think our project is probably going to be affected by this a little bit less than some of the other projects because we have completed so much of our public engagement now. And so now it's really, research and work on behalf of the project team that needs to happen to drive the project all the way home. So next we're going to use results from the citywide strategy and the corridor survey to further drive the smart technology recommendations. Then we're going to have an action plan of initiatives for consideration in the following years and hopefully kind of put those in order of preference or importance. We hope to get the intern that we've talked about. We've chosen our intern. And we hope that she'll help refine our action plan and focus on funding and opportunities for specific technologies. So, we hope to end up with this list of recommendations, and then we should have those ready by the time the intern is ready to start. And then that person can just go to town on a couple of the recommendations with research and funding and pro formas or whatever it would need to bring the project to the pilot project stage. And then we're going to produce the final deliverable, which is going to include the strategy, the corridor study, the research, and then the final recommendations for year one. So that concludes my presentation. Thank you so much.